Ladies and gentlemen, we love that you are joining us here, and we hope that you could do us a favor. If you are liking our episodes, please share them. Tell us that you like them. Leave us a review, and we will be eternally grateful.
Welcome to The Wizard and the Priestess. I'm your host, Nola, and this is my co-host, Matt. Today, we are going on a journey, and I thought I'd bring you along for the ride. To start with, though, Matt has a fun joke he's had saving up all week for us.
I've got two. A or B?
Nah, one. Okay, B.
Why can't you hear a pterodactyl go to the toilet?
What? I'm not sure, Matt. Tell me why.
Because the P is silent.
Well, okay, go for A.
No, I'll say that for next time.
Ah.
You have to tune in again.
Okay, see that next week. Wow, that actually bothers me a lot. Like, why have they, like, dinosaurs has been made up, right? They just made up these words in recent years too. Like, they weren't searching for dinosaur bones, but way back when. Why would they, like, surely that P isn't actually silent.
You can pronounce it pterodactyl, I'm sure. But maybe the person who discovered that was part of their name and mix it with a Latin, I don't know what pterodactyl means, but that's how it's usually becomes.
Yeah, because I went to this recently went to a dinosaur exhibition in the Hunter Valley. Anyone keen for it? It's pretty cool. I don't know, actually it might be finished now. They usually run it over the holidays, but it's quite cool. And they had it explained like the pterodon essentially breaks down into, that's also a pterodon, I think. You could use that one. Silent P.
Pterodon or a pterodon?
It's a
You'd
I think
pronounce it pterodon for sure.
I definitely told the kids that it was a pterodon, but I don't think now that you're saying it. But that I think means a flying or large winged bird or something.
Yeah, that would be applicable.
Okay, so we're moving right along. Today I have been diving down, or I'm studying now, how to be a better partner, I think is the studies that I think I'm partaking in.
And that led you to a dinosaur park.
It did. Well, no, you led me to the dinosaur P, but I found my way back.
My bad. Yeah.
Oh, he starts again. All right. What I wanted to say was, okay, so I watched this thing the other day on some app I've been looking at. No, but I wanted to say that I was trying to explain this to Matt before we started, but then I thought, you know what, let's just bring it in and we can get all the experience as we're here. So, Matt, do you know the story of Adam and Eve?
I know several different versions of that story.
Okay. All right. So I don't need your version. Let me go and then you can come back. So my version that I'm going to base my talk about before I get before we go into what I've been learning is the fact that Adam and Eve, can you give me the Catholic version maybe of, or no, not the whole version. I'll give you a little bit and you can maybe fill in some blanks here. Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. Beautiful heavenly garden, love everywhere. Everything is bliss. There was a tree of
good and evil.
And who told them not to eat from the tree?
The big cheese. The G-man himself.
Okay. So
I'm paraphrasing from the Bible.
Okay. Obviously, you've done your Bible studies today. So the big cheese said, do not eat from the tree.
Yeah.
And in that moment, then Eve decided to eat from the tree because she was interested, intrigued. She had something that guided her, I
Mhm.
would like to try an apple. And then she ate the apple. And then what happened?
According to Catholicism, they got kicked out of uh, Eden and
And were
cast out to earth.
okay. All right. So, what I was watching the other day gave a slightly different perception or perspective on it. And the perception or the perspective that they took was that it wasn't just that they were cast out in accordance to that Catholicism, that Catholic
Story,
view
yeah.
or Catholic story, was that when Eve ate the apple, she was then, what she lacked was that her, instead of when God came and said, "Who ate the apple?" they were like, "Oh, I don't know." What happened was that Adam said, "No, no, it was Eve," and pointed his finger and said, "No, no, Eve ate the apple. Gee, man, it wasn't me." And in that moment, what happened was there was the separation in the partnership. So the separation of man and woman, or we could say the separation of the whole. And therefore, that kind of was what intertwined, that dance was then taken away and we were put onto earth, or humans were started on earth, say. But what is quite interesting is when we think about that bond of man and woman, and we think about the partnership that is the equal, like two sides of the same coin. I mean, yeah. And the importance of the polarity and the importance of that like connecting back together, that if we see this story, we can understand everything in our day and age, in our society, and how things have been. Is that I believe we don't really respect the partnership of the man and the woman in that way. And if we take it all the way back to Adam and Eve, where Adam threw Eve under the bus, it almost shows and demonstrates the separation between the two. For one, I'm not saying that it's only Adam's fault, but it does give us a pretty clear foundation of where we're missing the mark as in partnerships as man and woman, where we're actually missing this connection to the importance of our polarity, and therefore the importance of us coming back together as one holy unit.
Yes, so the woman does the wrong thing. Guy fesses up to the boss, and it's the guy's fault.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the point is that you miss the partnership. You're not actually revering the importance of the partnership. You're revering the authority looking down, bestowing their authority upon you.
But there's a piece missing from that.
Yeah.
Who/what convinced Eve to eat the fruit?
Fuck, I love that you asked that question. And this is the next piece, is that as the feminine and the power of the woman herself, she has the intuition and the wisdom and the guidance, which is also in this video. I'm not making this up for me, but has the knowledge that she can actually download what she needs and move energetically and then be held in the framework of the masculine that then affirms for her or believes what she is sharing. So the woman or the feminine energy has the power to download or intuit what she should do. She has the wisdom inside of her that should be revered by her man.
So in the
Trusted.
Bible, it says there's a snake that
Yes, and
tricks
that's
Eve into
also,
doing that.
yeah, so we might be, but could it be,
Maybe the
could we
snake
see?
and Eve have something going on. Adam's onto it. You ever think of that?
No, no. The snake is the guiding wisdom, is especially for this year, right? What is this snake year demonstrating for us? It's demonstrating us for us or giving us this knowledge of transformation. It's guiding us to be aware of what part of ourselves or what aspects in our experience need to be transformed and can be transformed. And if we sit with that and lean into that, we're going to be given guidance And I know personally, I have been guided in many a way that I would not have chosen in this, even from February, and or what that feels very outlandish or uncomfortable. But in the terms of the snake year, we're literally where transformation is literally the key word. It could be that this evil snake was actually the wisdom downloading the feminine knowledge and intuition for Eve to guide her to make that decision. And then what could have happened from that point was when the G-man came down and said, hey, who ate from the fruit? Instead of Adam saying, oh yeah, it was Eve, some evil snake came and told her what to do, he could have just stood by her and looked to her to intuit what was, what do you feel you want to say? Or like, how do you want to share this story? And so I think that, yeah, it's quite like, it feels quite interesting, the perspective of that in that moment that Adam threw Eve under the bus, that it actually created this separation between man and woman and the partnership that exists between the two of them.
Well, the snake also represents Kundalini rising.
Yeah.
So it allows her the power to choose. Now, if you're in Eden and you can't eat from a certain tree, do you have free will?
Well, no. So therefore they're already on Earth. And so Adam definitely shouldn't have thrown her under the bus. Thank you for proving my point.
Who made how did Eve come about?
From the rib of, well, then we got to go back to the idea of Lilith, who was Adam's first wife, and then she left because she was like, nah, man, like we're equal here. We're equals.
You're saying Adam's a bit of a dick.
I don't know if he is. I'm actually not saying that, and I don't want to say that. But now that I think about it, Lilith was actually Adam's first wife, and she left on her own accord. And then God was like, "Oh shit, Lilith's gone. I better get you someone else." And then he was made. Then, yeah, what's right? Eve was made from one of his ribs, right? Or a bone.
So if they were married and divorced, in Catholicism, divorce is considered a sin.
Yes.
So why wasn't Adam? I was going to say, why was Adam punished? Maybe he was with Eve. Interesting.
Wow. Now you see. Anyway, I wasn't trying to go there, and I especially wasn't trying to get into the idea that let's fight against.
So are you talking about Adam and Eve as actual people or symbolic representations of aspects of consciousness?
I'm not talking about the latter. I'm talking about thinking of them as actual people.
So as a literal happening.
Literal happening. And I mean, I'm sure you could go dive down into what I'm saying from a philosophical standpoint as well. But for now, to keep my brain steady in the direction that I want to flow, I would like to stay in that Adam and Eve, forget about Lilith for the moment, and just imagine that Adam and Eve were a couple, and she wasn't necessarily made of him, but just they were a couple. And then G-Man said, don't eat from the tree. And then she chose to eat from the tree because she was intuited to eat from the tree. And in that moment, when G-Man came back and said, who ate from the tree? Adam went, she did. And that was essentially the split that could have occurred, that could have created this split. And then when we look at, it kind of comes full circle with everything that I'm learning. And of course, this is the way, because this is the way of the priestess, that everything sits and like pieces come together into this mystified experience that I'm currently dancing in. And it comes back to the idea of the sovereign couple and the sovereign child. And the idea that I've been kind of toying with in terms of parenting has been this idea from Aaron Stupel, who I think he bases it on David Deutsch's work, and the idea of having a sovereign child. And it's not about punishment, and it's not about complete free, like letting your child walk all over you. or like, like soft conscious parenting or gentle parenting or like corporal punishment. He kind of says, no, there's a completely different way, and it's called sovereign parenting. And essentially it's just about treating your child as if they are a sovereign human. And how would you treat that person? How would you look after them? How would you guide them? And it's a bit of a I awaken, like a bit of a stretch of the consciousness in many ways, but a lot of it I actually practice, but then there's some things that I feel very uncomfortable about, so I'm just trying to lean into that. But that's in terms of the sovereign child, and essentially it is all about being their friend and listening to them and supporting their idea and trusting that they have the innate knowledge about what they need. So if they want to eat peanut butter on bread all day, every day, and that's all they want to eat, well, then we trust that their body is guiding them to that. We don't not give them the opportunity to have a nutritious breakfast and lunch and dinner or whatever, but we allow them the breadth like you would allow any human. Like I wouldn't come over to your house and say, no, Matt, you cannot have that chocolate. It is not like, no, it's a no. It's just a hard no. That is definitely something I have said to my child. So it's this idea that you would treat your children in the way that you would treat a peer or you would treat someone. So it's not about the hierarchy or the, it's more about, okay, but it's not also about the, what ends up happening or what can happen with like, so you have you have one way, top way down, authoritative. I'm the person in charge, and then the child's underneath. And then you've got the other way, which ends up happening that the child ends up becoming in charge, and the parent is just kind of like, oh no, oh, okay, yeah, you wanted to, okay, I sort of said no, but all right, I'll change my mind, and then just swinging around depending on what the child wants, and that becomes like the tyrannical child. Sovereign would be more of the actual equal, where the parent is guiding this child in many ways. You're still guiding them, but you're guiding them with a more, with a more human, sovereign view. So if they say, I don't really want to go to school today, you say, okay, can we go? Would you be open to going for 20 minutes and I'll stay with you until you're done and then we can go? How does that sound? And then kind of guiding, or no, I don't want to go for 20 minutes. Okay, well, let's leave that to rest for now. Let's see how we go. It's kind of really following the child's lead. Now, I didn't really want to talk about that so much. So let me bring it back to the partner aspect of the sovereign couple.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just an idea of how you would be as a sovereign, as rearing a sovereign child. You would be in this level, and it's sort of the same, and being equal to the man and the woman, but different. So where Adam and Eve, essentially Adam had, from that story in itself, if you think of them as people over being a philosophical, what did you call that?
Well, it's a
Consciousness, breakdown of consciousness.
It's a I can't remember
symbol.
The word. It's a symbolic representation.
Yes. So instead of a symbolic representation, if we think of it as people, or like even, but Eve is a piece of Adam, even in that. So they're not quite equal in that perspective anyway. I'd be interested to hear what someone would say about that practices the religion of it. However, what I wanted to come to was this thinking that how do we create sovereign partnerships? And how do we create sovereign relating? And I think something that I have learned, and this is absolutely a personal learning, where I've actually had to allow myself to step back and step out of the way and stop guiding and advising and kind of like putting my touch on all the things that should be essentially my partner's choices. And in him being a little bit more like subdued, or like happy for me to give him that, he's actually missed out on becoming the masculine in the form that he really needs to. So it's sort of been in me taking charge because I haven't had the experience or I haven't been shown to be able to trust the men in my life. I therefore I lack being able to be vulnerable and trust that they will do the things that I need them to do. And then I will step in and do all the things. And so therefore I'm busy doing all the things, which then blocks my partner from doing all the things and being and stepping into his masculine role in the way that he should or could or is divinely created to. So I think that's something that that I wanted to touch on. And
That's
so
your
it's
fault.
not necessarily that Adam is a terrible person. And yes, I've actually sat with this a little bit in recent days, how like I'm like, oh wow, could it be like a lot of our troubles are absolutely my fault because I can intuit that there's something wrong. I can intuit that there's something not quite right here, that there is something amiss, that that I should be doing things a little bit, well, things should feel a little bit more easeful. And so I've been practicing, and this is something that I've spoken to a lady about, Anna Lee, and she described, like, guided me to do this course that I'm studying called Freya. And she suggested to me, she goes, I said to her, I'm like, it feels a bit far-fetched or hard to believe that I have to do more work, like more inner work, more peeling back the layers, more understanding. And she said, but that is the feminine work. The feminine has the wisdom and the guidance and the intuition to actually be able to intuit these things in a partnership. And the man is devoted to his partner. And therefore, how she is actually will impact the whole. Whereas how he is dependent on her. So it feels a little bit like that was a hard thing for me to swallow because I was like, fuck you. This is bullshit. I don't think that it should all be on me. However, I must admit, in the 2 weeks that I've started this course and the actions that I've taken, I can already see the flow on of me getting out of my partner's way in the ways that I was and sitting back a little bit more, doing less and allowing him to suffer into his masculinity.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. I would say, firstly, that masculine and feminine mean different things to different people. And then I will follow up with a question to you and to anyone listening. What is your role in the relationship? Answer anytime.
Well, I wasn't thinking that this was going to be a counseling session.
I didn't expect to be talking about dinosaurs, but here we are.
Mate, you threw it in there. That's not on me.
In general, not you personally, but anyone.
Yeah, I know, but now you're like generalizing, and I don't know. No, I don't. I think that I haven't thought about it.
Because I ask this
But
to couples and people going through relationship stuff all the time, and it's the most common answer I would get back from the guy would be along the lines of protection, providing, that kind of stuff, where the woman is, what's the most common I'd get from the woman? It would usually be to hold everything together or slash, let's say holding everything together, or like as deep as that, or as superficial as keep the house clean. Everything in between. And I said, what if your role in relationship, be it personal, professional, spiritual, whatever, is just to bring the best of yourself to the table without the expectation of labels of being the provider, being the keeping the house clean or whatever, that is. But what if you were to bring the best of what you are and who you are to the table, and your partner does the same thing back to you? Because you're 50% in any relationship. So if you're not bringing the best of yourself to the table, let's just say you might be 40%. There's 10% that your partner cannot access for that time. Now, your partner might have the vitality, resources, etc., to reach over to the table and help bring you back up and help, I guess, in a way, fill that 10%. So you're back to back to where you want to be. But then if he's missing 10% as well, then that goes further in deficit. If he or the partner is constantly going over the table to pick you up, that's exhausting. So that's when resentment's going to creep in and fatigue. But then what does a relationship look like coming back if both parties bring the best of themselves to the table? Because with any relationship, there's 3 relationships. There's a relationship I have with myself, the relationship they have with themselves. The relationship itself is its own sort of archetype. It has its own thought form, energy to it. And that's when it becomes, in Paul Chek talks about the I, we, all. So the relationship I have with myself is the I. The relationship we have is the we. And as soon as a third is involved, a child as example, then that's the all. But you can't have 2 healthy I's. Sorry, you can't have a healthy we without 2 healthy I's.
Yeah. And I would say that bringing your best self to the table is always the aim. But what is your best self?
That's
well, I think it is absolutely up to you. But in reality, most people aren't as well versed in who they are as, say, you are. And therefore, when they think they're bringing the best, they probably are bringing the best of themselves to the table, but they're only for their own relationship to self at about a 60%. So when they bring themselves to the table, they actually don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where the framework of what I've been learning in Freya is pretty powerful and profound, I think, because it comes back to the biological norms of the human and the biological norms of a male and a female. And what you just shared about how the man has his main experience or sharing of what he does in the relationship is providing and protecting. Well, that is not like the most biological norm for a man is to provide and protect. So however he can provide and protect. And the thing is that he also, what is he providing and protecting? Well, he's providing and protecting his territory. And his territory is the thing that's most important to him. Now, I would say, and personally, I have found that I am protecting my territory. And that's not so for a woman, generally or biologically, not generally, but like kind of affirmatively, the part of her that she needs to protect is her children. So anything that crosses her children is her territory.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or her children are her territory. And so everything that is around her children is what she's going to provide and protect for and do anything she can, anything in her power. Now, for a man, what he is providing and protecting ideally should be his partner, should be his wife. That will have she essentially in the partnership form, if he can, he'll have other things that he's also protecting. It might be his car, or it might be his watch, or I don't know, what's something that you're protecting? Your fridge. Can't get rid of that beautiful fridge. It's important, I protect my fridge till it dies. But it's like this, there's something innately in little boys, in men, the wiring of the brain is to protect and provide for everything around them, especially, but most importantly, their partner, who essentially should make, because if she is provided and protected for, everything else follows through, because from a biological standpoint, a man and a woman procreate, and the woman looks after the children and he looks after the woman, so then she can look after the children. Now, if I think about this from a partnership perspective and what I have come to understand about myself, and I would say that there's many, many boss babes out there that feel very similarly. And I don't mean to degrade that, because I find now that I'm diving more and more into this work of biology and like the biological feminine and how she sits in the world, and how we've been kind of misguided in a way, because we haven't had the matriarch, or not necessarily a matriarch, but we haven't had the women around us to support us, the aunties and the grandmothers that have guided us through rites of passage and the ritual that has like kind of infiltrated from the generations above us. It's missing. It's not there for generations and generations, at least in my family and in the families of women that I have spent time with. So we're missing this idea that now we have it all. Now we're equal in a different way. Now we've had the opportunity to go and study. We've had the opportunity to do everything. We can look after ourselves completely, that a man becomes almost obsolete, because we can protect and provide for ourselves, because we have all the knowledge. But what we then come into partnership with a man who essentially will either meet us and only want one thing from us, because essentially he can't provide anything more. He can't provide or protect, because we've got that covered. And it becomes, for me personally, has been the learning, has been being able to soften down enough that allows my man or my partner to rise more into that protecting and providing position. And in doing that, in allowing myself to soften, it creates a whole new ripple of what's going on the inside of like the inner dynamics of me and my partner, the inner dynamics of me and my children, because I don't have to no longer worry about all the other things.
Yeah, I think what came up to me when you were talking was you said the word protection and provide a lot. Now that needs to be clear for both parties what that means, because modern day that usually correlates to some kind of financial thing. For some people it's more physical, for some people it's more filling the car up with petrol. That's how they feel provided for and protected. So I think that needs to be defined for both first, because if the woman has one definition, the guy has another, well, then that's only ever going to cause friction. And then one of them is going to be frustrated, the other is going to feel like shit.
And I would say that naturally, once children are involved, the ability for a man to step up and provide, I think it's surprising how quickly as a woman you go, I mean, I think after you have a first baby, you go, I want to get back to work. It's important. This is like, especially if you've grown up in the way that I have, if you've had equal opportunity throughout every single step of your life until you became a mum. So then you really want to start a business and work from home so you can be with your kids as much as possible. But essentially your head's going to be in the clouds because you're trying to run a business, and you're kind of pushing and pulling between being a mum and being contributing to the community and contributing to your family in some way. And absolutely, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a good definition within your own family of what providing and protecting means. But I think when it comes to a biological standpoint, as soon as you have a child involved, especially, that the woman will find that she would she will feel pulled naturally in both directions of what baby she feeds more. Is it going to be that she's feeding her is she feeding her child, or is she feeding her business or her work? And I think in that experience that I personally had, I would find that it would have been incredible if my partner went, okay, wow, all right. What we had before were these two income streams, but now I actually have to fill that more consciously, because in order, economics is always going to be the way we feed ourselves in the Western society, unless you're living off the land. So you do need money to pay for food, to pay for housing. So economics is always going to come and play a role, right? It's always going to be there. And it's always going to be something that is, over the top, that you must that must be accounted for. And that would be how to provide for someone and to demonstrate protection in our way of life, would it not?
Surrender.
So I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
but I want to know
question.
more. What you shared before was the importance of a man and a woman knowing, or in a partnership, knowing what they are providing, like what they are providing and protecting. And what I was trying to suggest was that, well, in our day and age, money is essentially the way, or finances are the way that you would provide and protect for someone, because finance is essentially going to pay for the food and pay for the housing. So my question is.
So there is something innate in the male to provide and protect. That's like it's an instinct, a drive that we have. We also, men innately know that men are also dispensable, where women are not. Because women give birth to the child. Nature wants, in order to survive, child, mum, dad, in that order, to proliferate the species. Now, so guys knowing that they're indispensable, that's why a lot of guys have guys like to sow the seed, so to speak, because we know we're indispensable. We're dispensable. Yep.
Yeah.
So when we have that unit, we become very protective. And society tells men that we have to go out and get the highest paying job, regardless whether we like it or not. We need all the money to protect the family and provide for mum, child / children, and the house and all that kind of stuff. Now that puts a lot of pressure on a man. Modern day, that's more financial, as you were talking about. The innate instinct of a man in that situation is to protect mum and child from all the lions and tigers and bears of the world. Now, this is what I mean by getting clear on what that means for both people, because he might go out and work 20 hours a day. And sure, he's absolutely financially providing, but that's come at a cost. That cost is him not being there physically, mentally, or emotionally. Because by the time he's there, he's exhausted. And just the sound of a crying baby, as an example, can be enough just to, like, he needs to, that's too much for him. Sounds really selfish, but that's what goes on for a lot of people. So that's what I mean by get clear on what providing and protecting and support looks like. because the woman can't do it 24/7 just by herself. She wants to, absolutely, and her hormonal system is driving her to do that. But at some point, she needs to eat. At some point, she needs to do what makes her happy and what she needs in order to feel more vital and replenish those stores. As we spoke about, can't remember the episode, but when we were talking postpartum. Now, at the same time, if the woman wants financial protection and being provided for, the man, let's say the man doesn't have a great paying job, but he's really good at spending time there. He thinks in his own way that I'm here for the family, I'm doing my bit, I'm protecting, etc. She's like, well, I can't afford this, we can't have that. You go out and make more money. That automatically demasculates the man.
Mm.
At the same time, let's say he's got a really good, well-paying job, but it costs time. So he's not mentally present because he's exhausted. And then the woman, I need you to spend more time with us. And his automatic thought straight away is, I can't, I've got to go to work to pay for all the stuff that you have. Now, I'm not saying that is a congruent way of thinking. I'm just saying that's where a lot of guys' heads are at in that regard.
And I'd bring that in then and say that this is exactly the reason why what I'm learning about is so profound and powerful, because I've done this work before with Alex Portal, and I did a course called Interconnected. And it was really powerful, and it showed me what men and women and how they're wired differently. But now let's add in the biology aspect, which is what you're just talking about, that biologically men are wired to provide and protect their woman, their partner, their wife, the person that they have chosen to revolve their life around, the person that they have chosen to have children with. Now, they are therefore wired to be on the same frequency as her, to be impacted by how she feels, therefore are impacted by her criticism. And the criticism, which is that emasculination that you're just talking about, whatever way it comes, whether it is make more money for me or be at home more, it's in the power of the woman and maintaining the frequency of the family that she actually has the ability to support him rather than emasculate him. And I read this book, The Queen's Code, recently, and I realized how much we have. I still think that the way we're trying to bring it back to equilibrium is a bit of it's a bit of a stretch for the modern woman, because she's so used to being able to do all of this for herself. She doesn't really need anyone else until she has a baby, and then she realizes, I really need a lot more people than I have. And we speak about this like, oh, the women need the village. Like, we need the village so much more than we know, but there is so much hidden secrets, like hidden trauma that blocks us there. There's so much, say, oh, I can't spend that much time with my family member because they annoy me, right? Oh, I can't do that. Like, we are so incapable of being uncomfortable. We are so uncomfortable with being like having our triggers like slapped at us that we would choose away from a family and choose to separate ourselves than to be connected to, or to focus on our own, like actual increasing our own frequency, actually breaking it away and clearing it out and really deeply nourishing ourselves, because it all just feels a bit too hard. It's not worth it, right? We are not prepared. There is not two people coming to a relationship, whether that's within, you might have a problem with your uncle or whatever, or you might have a problem with your auntie. And instead of connecting to that and actually leaning in a functional way, like I know personally, I have family members that are capable, physically, emotionally capable, and have the time to be helpful. But it feels a little bit too much to actually reach out and say, hey, I can come over for a few hours if that would be helpful. And as a mother of 3 young children, an hour is helpful every blue moon. So it's it's a bizarre place that we've gotten to where we deliberately segregate ourselves from the potential village. And then when we might find ourselves in a village, like I know personally, I created a group of women that were very like-minded and I connected to them. But even there were aspects where we weren't willing to break down our own triggers or actually lean into the pain or the suffering, be brutally honest in a kind and caring way, in a loving space, to actually break through some of the taboo and the disharmony that would have then offered us the ability to have a village, to be able to go over to someone's home and just be there in all the chaos. But there's because it's a bit uncomfortable and it's like there's unsaid things, it's like we hide and shy away from it. So what I feel like I'm learning now is adding all these pieces together from a biological standpoint and understanding as a woman the power that we have. This man is literally chosen if you are in a respectable relationship where you have chosen a man to be your partner and live your days with and grow babies together with. We have the ability to either build them up or crush them down. And knowing that biologically they are wired to provide and protect for you. And as a woman, all we have to do, like both of us need to, but if as a man you understand you are biologically wired to provide and protect in whatever way that is, that might be that you are available to provide in a way that you're home with the children more often than not, and the mother can do whatever she needs to do. That might be the case, but it is definitely something to understand it from a biological standpoint, that it's different to what I personally grew up, I definitely like at some points was reading a lot about feminism and, how men have it easier. And, it ended up being just this war on men or this war on women or, it's kind of like we can't have it all, but we could have it a lot better than we currently allow ourselves to.
Well, it just goes to show that you can't, it goes to show that we simply need each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you're one of these people who are fiercely independent, I don't need anyone or anything from anyone. Who made your clothes? Where did you get your food? A farmer grew your food. Someone from somewhere made your clothes. So we do need each other. And it's kind of sad in a way that you were talking before about, the village and the aunties and the grandmas who aren't there. They're the wise elders in the tribe. And as you were saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. And that seems to have not really, that's kind of lost on our culture, really. And there's a myriad of reasons for that potentially. Where I was trying to go with that is, I think, to the degree that if you've got people who could be your tribe or should, in theory, be your tribe, but they trigger the crap out of you. And you might not have the capacity to do that as a new parent, but just know that there's something in there with you that's ultimately, you're expressing that somewhere in your life as well, whatever they trigger. And I don't think, how you are as a mum. Sorry, when you're pregnant, you're sharing hormones with the baby for 9 months. So, it's almost, the profile will be almost identical. And how the mother feels about the father in the womb imprints on the child and how they perceive men for the rest of their life. A female will always compare other men unconsciously to their dad, and men with women and their mum, or however that makes sense. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that starts from the womb. And if there's a stressful pregnancy, that's going to imprint itself. You'd be the same when you were working, that people who had their parents had a very stressful pregnancy for whatever reason, they grew up as adults that are just constantly wired, and they need to be wired. It's like they can't relax until they're stressed, which is a bit of a paradox. But that comes back to all the way back. But then going back to what you were saying, by having that village and having that support, the village, but also trusting yourself enough to allow your partner to help and to do what they think their role is, or at least having a discussion about, okay, this is what I need from you. This is what I can do. This is what I want to do. And I think just communicating that is going to go a huge, long way. That can work for now. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of our own bullshit that gets in the way of a lot of everything, right? Bringing it all back to Adam's rib and Eve. And it's like, it's not a matter of pointing fingers at Adam and saying you did a terrible thing. It's the fact that when we work together as a partnership and as a team, and we trust each other's innate knowledge and innate knowing. So we trust, say, for example, the woman trusts the man to provide and protect in whatever capacity he can. And he shows you what he will do. But the best thing I've found personally is when the woman actually sits in her innate knowing and her truest belief in what she knows and guides her family or guides her partner in, okay, this is what feels right for me, and him be receptive to what she offers, be receptive to the gifts of her knowing, the gifts of her deeper knowing, because she's intuitively much more connected to that realm than he will be, because his focus is going to be on the bear and the lion that's coming for him in that moment, which could be any number. It could be, it could be his work. It could be the job assignment. It could be, he could be the team sport. It could be the coordination of the team sport, whatever that might be.
They might even follow Cronulla.
He might even, yeah. So whatever it might be, it's this, he's looking at the bear. And something I learned recently was when we look at biology, we understand that a man, his eyes are better at depth perception. They are wired to be better at depth perception than a woman's eyes. Hers are much better at periphery. So she's much more capable. And why would that be so? Well, because he only needs to watch out for the bear in front of him, that single focus, that one thing. She needs to be focused in that one box, that one box in the brain, that one little box. He's just focused on that one box. She has all her box bunches together. The periphery allows her to see all those boxes in one moment. So she knows where all the children are, what food is needed, what things are needed, how to do that, where everyone is. She's got 6 to 10 children, because that's what the human body can physically create naturally.
6 to 10.
And so
6 to 10.
6 to 10. I mean, women make 6 to 10 babies pretty, from 24 to 44 in 20 years. It's 6 to 10 babies, I'd say. With no form of conception in any way. No form of, what's that thing called when you stop it?
Oh, contraception.
Contraception, yeah. But it's that is, it's actually, how you said before that the man, crying baby might be too overwhelming for him. Well, actually, if it's a crying baby, he's unlikely to hear it because he actually, that would be blocked from his hearing. So it's he's less likely to hear, once you've said something once, he's less likely to hear it the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th time. And you said, I told you 10 times. And he's like, oh, this is the first time I've ever heard it. I don't know how many times I've had that conversation, but now that I understand it, it's sort of like, okay, you are sort of like a child in some facets. Although you have the communication skills, the ability to see above me and to see straight to the problem, whereas I'm too busy looking in my periphery with all these boxes all bunched together. And whilst that works for the feminine and works for the flow of her, it's going to be a bit overwhelming. So when we bring it back to the village and our own stuff that gets us blocked and stops us from actually fully seeing and experiencing the possibility, it sort of grinds us down. And what I personally have found is that have spent a lot of time just, okay, all right, well, that's not working out for him. He's not able to provide that for me. So I will go out and make that happen for me because that's what's necessary. But now I've changed my tune and it's more about I can trust you to do what we need. And now I'm letting you go ahead and strategize. And I know that, and I actually trust you to come up with the answers. I'm not going to help you. I don't want to help you because I do want to help you naturally. I want to like show you the way and nudge you in the direction. But instead, I'm going to step back and say, you know what? I believe in you. And I'm going to be encouraging instead of criticizing. And that has been in 2 weeks of me practicing that. The frequency has shifted for the first time in 14 years. And well, not 14 years, probably 13 years, because for the first 6 months or 12 months of a relationship, it's very different because you are actually bringing your best foot to the table. You are bringing that 50% to the relationship because you are putting your best foot forward.
Well, speaking
And
of
then
biology,
you've got lust that's on there.
speaking
to
of
help.
biology, which seems to be your favorite word today,
I thought it was, what did you say?
you know,
Providership.
women use 5 to 10 times more words than men in a day.
I knew this. You've talked about this the last time we spoke about men and women.
And you were talking about how the guy wouldn't hear the baby
Oh, yeah.
because the guy's thinking about the job or the bear that's just outside waiting for him.
Or he's sleeping.
Or he's sleeping because he's been working all day. Not saying that we're more tired. But that's because, as you were saying, that guys are wired to do one thing, but we're designed to do it really, really well with absolute precision. And because females have 30% more commissarial fibers and their corpus callosum is 30% bigger in the brain, which synchronizes left and right hemisphere, you're able to do less precise tasks, but a lot more of them at any given time.
Yeah.
And that also plays into the words because a guy will, you could talk to me for an hour and I may not say a word. I will pick out the words that are most relevant to what I believe you're trying to say. And basically just say, so in other words, Eve did the wrong thing. Adam was just standing up for what's right.
Adam should have thrown her under the bus. It was the evil sorceress of the snake that came in and yeah, maybe that's where you're getting at. But I also just want to add that if this is triggering you as a woman, you might just be playing out some inner demons that you didn't realize were there. Because I know personally there is an aspect to me that wants to believe that I am the way I am because of the experience that I've had, and therefore this is actually a superpower and I can turn that into a superpower, whatever experience I've had. So I am quite good at doing tasks like, that idea that when the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I tend to be quite meticulous about the things that I do.
Sorry.
So, but like most of the time. I would say I try to, at the very least, try and do things very precisely. But that is a very masculine trait, maybe because my soul is man, but also it could just be possible that I haven't felt safe enough with men, so I've maintained that for myself.
But
Or
also, there are
I've
some men who are more in their feminine, and some women who are more in their masculine, and that's just naturally who they are.
It can be, but what I would want to point out to that, it could be just who you are, but it might be that you're pushing against the natural biological being of who you are because of the trauma that you've experienced or that someone in your line has experienced and therefore has bestowed that upon you.
It
So you
could
know what
be.
you were saying.
And then you would
go.
just need to check out, you need to be conscious of the patterns in your life.
Exactly. And what I was going to say, sorry, I just want to say this before I forget it. What you were saying before about how if a woman was pregnant and she was stressed out, that is biologically going to be your way of safety. But what I want to remind people is that, okay, as a woman who is probably stressed out through pregnancies, like I remember I got a red flag at work, and then in my next pregnancy I got a DA denied, and then in my next pregnancy, I mean, the last pregnancy was pretty beautiful in many ways, but it's like that can be pretty triggering to someone, and it's okay. But the thing that I want to note is that whilst your pregnancy your mother might have been stressed, likely she's still not stressed because she didn't have the consciousness to actually move through what she was experiencing. So like we talked about last week with the PTSD thing, she's still holding onto the steering wheel like she's been throughout her whole pregnancy, throughout your whole entire life. So if you're listening to this and this is triggering you, remember to ask yourself, are you still holding onto the wheel and is it time to let go? Because that's available to you. And if you're in a relationship where you find that you are constantly emasculating your man or criticizing him, because in your mind, it might not even be that you're speaking it, he's feeling that vibration, and the frequency that you're creating together is actually impacting everything in your relationship itself.
And to the degree there's a trigger, then keep in mind that trigger is from a past event, which is now bending your current perception. So there's a fraction of your psyche that would be fractured to a point. So it's like seeing a crack in a mirror. You're not seeing the picture as you're seeing it, the picture reflected. You're not seeing it how it's
It actually is.
Yeah.
And this is something that I read just before, was that healing isn't about erasing your past. It's about proving to your nervous system that it's over. And so, yeah, it's that whole kind of bringing all those pieces of the puzzle together, is that when we as a man, a woman going into a partnership can both be aware that we're both bringing 50% of ourselves and aware that things have happened in the past and we're going to bring that in, but we have an opportunity to know ourselves as a trauma-filled human living life and experiencing life, as well as a biological male or female. And I'd say it doesn't really matter if you are in a same-sex couple, you're also going to biologically want to do those same things. So then it's going to be an even more about finding your balance in who does what and how you maneuver around those things, because you're both going to be wired to want to do similar things. So you just got to find a different sort of balance in that. It's a different sort of balancing act. But when it comes to a man and a female, a man and a woman, I think it's pretty profound, or has been very profound for me, understanding where my trauma meets my partnership and where who I think I am actually can be dissolved a little bit more and understood from a deeper level.
And not blaming Adam and Eve.
And there's no blame on Adam or Eve, whether or not he threw her under the bus.
Or if she did the right or wrong thing. We're not pointing fingers, are we?
I need to work on that one and start a 3.0, man and woman 3.0. Maybe at the end of this course, we'll come back and see where I stand on all of these viewpoints. Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you got a lot out of it, and feel free to write us a review or share our episode on your socials and any episode that lights you up.
Ciao, ciao.
Peace.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.